Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Performing and Visual Arts, SOPVA. Diploma in Theatre Arts, DTH. BTH 1 Understanding Drama. Block-1 Drama and Introduction. Unit-4 Developments in 20th Century Drama. 4.0 Objectives. In this unit you will be introduced to drama written in the 20th century and its growth and development. The characteristic features of 20th century drama and the important dramatists of this period are also discussed in this unit. 4.1 Introduction. The drama written and performed in the 20th century is by any standards a major achievement. There has been much innovation and experiment, and this has been related to the growth and crisis of civilization. The new movements in 20th century were influenced by liberty, equality and fraternity and the challenging attitude in art and life. There was an array of complex and confusing trends. This century witnessed the final culmination of the stage's commercialism, and this was evident in the rise of the repertory, playhouses and the associated movements, some of which we have already studied in Kinds of Drama. A new style of acting emerged, less polished, less virtuoso, but stronger, more direct and individualistic, more related to behavior outside the theatre. Russell Brown, I. The characteristic features of drama in 20th century are 1. New acting schools and theatres. Royal Academy of Dramatic Art of the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, Abbey Theatre in Dublin, 1903, Gaiety Theatre in Manchester, 1907, People's Theatre at Newcastle, 1911, British Drama League founded by Geoffrey Whitworth, 1919, and the establishment of Scottish Community Drama Association, to list a few. 2. Emergence of silent cinema, which rapidly destroyed the tradition of theatre. In 30s came the sound films and then television. 3. Translations of foreign works proliferated and were at equal footing with English. Drama, in fact, influenced it more. 4. The stage of this period was influenced and altered by historical, social, political, economic and scientific trends. The two wars, the economic depression, the technological advancements, from washing machines to nuclear bombs, from emergence of fractions of religious cults to man's conquest of space, all have led to diverse and manifold growth of human mind. 5. Emergence of new plays and new young dramatists with newer creative ideas and more imaginative presentations. Kitchen sink drama, neorealist drama, drama of non-communication, absurd drama, comedy of manners, dark comedy, drama of cruelty, etc. evolved from the long tradition of stage and drama writing. To understand the new movement, we must look beyond individual plays. The common ground was experimentation and innovation. The motives for writing plays and choice of subjects were different from the previous Elizabethan or Restoration drama. Conventional drama had accepted standards, formal rules and technical means in enacted performance. Development in conventions always exists as the audience is open-minded, and therefore the dramatist may use any change in the performance of the play as there is a latent willingness to accept them. Williams. Raymond, 8. The newer dramatist liked to be sensational, to surprise and shock, to be fantastic and outrageous. Homosexuality, nymphomania, prostitution, abortion, violence, deaths, disfigurement and callow humor are all part of new drama. The writers choose popular, up-to-date, topical, obvious subjects. They use song, dance, soapbox oratory, pantomime and commercial techniques in their play adaptations. Brown writes, although the new British dramatists do not want to make statements or define their aims, They are creatively involved with society and seek a full revelation in their plays of what they find in the world around them and within them. They write for the theatre because this is the art form which allows them to show the complexity of those worlds, the permanent and frightening forces that lie behind each explosive crisis and each boring, dehumanizing routine, the limitations, dangers, and excitements of a personal, subjective view, the impossibility of judging any man except in relation to others, the strength of truth and permanence of idealism. They write youthful, topical, sensational, theatrical plays because the theatre can be a realistic, exploratory, complicated and, hence, responsible medium. They are promising and important dramatists. Russell Brown, 14. A comparison with the Elizabethan theatre can help us understand the new drama better. 1. Marlowe, Johnson, Greene, Dekker, Heywood, Shakespeare and Beaumont and Fletcher all started writing for the theatre in their 20s. All of Johnson's best works were written by his mid-30s. Shakespeare started writing plays when he was 26 and great tragedies like Hamlet were written by mid-30s. 2. Elizabethans were sensational. Some of the title pages of printed editions proclaim extreme cruelty, lamentable tragedy, odious death, pitiful murder, filthy best, etc. Plays dealt not only with violence, murder, grotesque deaths but also rape, sodomy, blasphemy, necrophilia, sex. 3. The Elizabethans too were pop. 4. The Elizabethans too worked in closest contact with theatre companies. Modern theatre is a richly varied enterprise of realism on the one hand, and of numerous departures from it, on the other. Practical matters and commonplace interests stirred the creativity of the new dramatists. They not only accept their environment as a subject for study and improvement but derive from it a new, comparatively literal style and approach. Each dramatist brought a new and individual touch to the growth of theatre. From the transitional age of 20th century to the present times, there is a change in dramatic method. Each movement offered completion of the creative effort. Drama in the world is no longer coexistent with theatre alone as the largest audience. For drama is in cinema and on television. The liberating media and advanced technological inputs have released the drama from a closed form to a more open and wide frame work. The 20th century drama is a record of difficulty and struggle. From Ibsen to Brecht, it is one of the great periods of dramatic history, a major creative achievement of our own civilization which gives us a continuing understanding, imagination and courage. Williams Raymond, 401. 4.2 Modern drama. Modern drama has partially been read in the kinds of drama unit as epic theatre, theatre of the absurd, poetic drama, etc. In this unit we need to read the important dramatists at some length. This will give you a view of specific creativities. 4.2.1 Ibsen, 1828 to 1906. Henrik Ibsen was born on 20th March 1828 in Skien, Norway, to middle-class parents. He was unable to communicate his mental gropings with the few people he knew initially. Later he prepared for matriculation and it was at this time that he composed his first tragedy Catiline. When it appeared in 1850, it was the first Norwegian play to be published in 7 years. This was followed by the one-act play, The Warrior's Barrow. Towards the end of 1851 he was made the official playwright of the theatre. Then came the Comedy Street. John S. Knight, 1852, historical drama Lady Inger of Ostrat. The Feast at Solhaug, The Vikings Ode Helgeland and poetic satiric La Veste Comédie. The period of apprenticeship ended with The Pretenders, then came the major non-theatrical plays Brand, Peer Gynt, Emperor and Galilean. The prose plays are also known as the domestic plays, and this Expressionism established in the League Ode Youth, A. Doll's House, Ghosts and Hedda Gabler. The fourth major period was that of visionary plays, The Master Builder and When We Dead Awaken. In the early years, i.e., between 1851 to 1864, he worked as a dramatist, producer and stage manager. The most heroic and affirmative of his plays was Brand the Play is arranged not to study a character but to state a theme. In Peer Gynt, Ibsen created a character that was the incarnation of everything that is vacillating and unstable in man. It is said that Peer Gynt was the most daring extravaganza of the modern theatre, as it was a realistic critique couched in terms of mock heroic fantasy. Gassner, 366. Ibsen is known for A Doll's House and Ghosts. In A Doll's House, he addressed to woman's place in the home and her limitations. Nora, the heroine, is never allowed to develop and grow as a woman either by her father or by her husband. The woman in The Doll's House was not intrinsically a doll, she only pretended to be one, because this was expected of her when she was locked in a doll's house where she was expected 1.0 be pretty and playful, submissive and mindless. The intensification of Ibsen's grappling with realities was witnessed in Ghosts. Ibsen created a taut human drama as it combined realism with protest against every tiling that shackles the individual in his pursuit of happiness and integrity. Hedda Gabler is a powerful play too, as it is a psychological study of a child. Ibsen did envision a new social order and created the consciousness of modern European drama. He created new attitudes of drama, and is credited with being the first major dramatist to write tragedy about ordinary people in prose. 4.2.2 August Strindberg, 1849–1912. Strindberg was a Swedish playwright born in Stockholm to a steamship agent. His first important play was Master Olof, a history play, followed by fairy play Lucky Petter's Travel, The Father, Miss Julie and Creditors, which combine a highly aggressive and original version of naturalism with a sense of the extreme and pathological. The later works are tense, symbolic, psychic dramas, marked by a sense of suffering and a longing for salvation and absolution. These are two: Damascus, The Dance of Death, a dream play, and The Ghost Sonata. Strindberg's genius as a dramatist was that his influence has been immense, both from the conflict plays and from the experiments in dramatic sequence and imagery. In the later work, he is supposed to be the most restless and experimental playwright, as he was perpetually dissatisfied, perpetually reaching after shifting truths, seeking the miracle of transmutation in the crucible of his tormented intellect. Brustine in Modern Drama, 313. Strindberg initiated an alternative anti-realistic theatre in opposition to Ibsen's realism. He has been regarded as Ibsen's anti-mask. He was a master of both naturalism and symbolism, and a forerunner of the expressionism of the post-war theatre. His weakness was his deficiency in balance and consistent rationality. His rebellious discontent, expressed through drama, highlighted his dissatisfaction with the essence of life. He wrote in his last play, The Great Highway, "Bless me, whose deepest suffering, deepest of human suffering was this, I could not be the one I longed to be." 4.2.3 Anton Chekhov, 1860–1904. One name among the post-Ibsen dramatists is of Anton Chekhov, the Russian dramatist and short story writer. He was born in a family of serfs, peasants, in 1860 in the Crimea region of southern Russia. Chekhov's father ran grocery shop. He had 4 brothers and 1 sister, and the family lived in utter penury. Later, his father fled and Chekhov was left to fend for his family. He wrote to support himself. Chekhov's professional training was in medicine. In a life spanning 44 years, Ty wrote nearly 800 short stories and 17 plays. He was an even-tempered soul, his sense of humor never failed him, and he retained a lovable simplicity and sweetness. He never lost his optimism and his faith in man. His major works are short stories, The Duel and Other Stories, Lady with Lapdog, and Other Stories, A Dreary Story, Ward No. 6, My Life, The Man in a Case and the Horse Thieves. One-act plays, Swan Song, The Bear, The Proposal, The Wedding and the Anniversary. Full-length plays, The Seagull, Uncle Vanya, The Cherry Orchard, Three Sisters. His plays were staged by the Moscow Art Theatre. Chekhov's plays are thought to be complex, soulful, as also sins, vague they reflect the mood of dejection which permeates the anxieties of 20th century. For Chekhov, life was an insoluble problem, and he wrote in The Seagull, "Tell me, what can I do?" This sentence and feeling runs like a leitmotif through his works. The central theme of all his plays is estrangement. He was aware of the fact that the very conditions of life doom man to failure. Despite this realization, he finds projects meaningful, relationships and meaningful action in his writing. In Seagull, nobody succeeds in finding love. In Uncle Vanya, no one achieves the goal. In Three Sisters, the sisters do not go to Moscow, and in Cherry Orchard, the cherry orchard is not saved. H's characters dream and rebel and try to reach out for what they want. Thus, defeat is transferred into spiritual triumph. His plays offer an alternate shade of despair and hope, tears and laughter. In The Three Sisters, the three sisters and a brother are stranded in a provincial town after the death of their father, and their only hope of escape from the tedium of exile is the brother Andrei, who has prospects of professorship in the capital. However, he marries a shallow woman who betrays him. Olga remains wedded to her school-teaching job. Masha is united to a fatuous pedagogue, a friend of her father, and Irina takes a job in telegraph office and later becomes a teacher. To the end, the sisters retain their vitality and vigor. In Cherry Orchard, the chief character, Madame Ranevsky, who represents the upper classes. She brings on her calamities by leading a spendthrift life abroad and converts her estate into a summer colony. Her adopted daughter Varya manages the household and finds the economy insufficient to save the situations. Madame Ranevsky is accustomed to a life of pleasure and liberty and possesses no pragmatic understanding of the world. The Cherry Orchard is a luxury that cannot be afforded and thus is auctioned off. The play is an attempt to come to terms with the past, to live without owning the orchard and its servants. Chekhov wanted his plays to express the paradox and the contradictions of experience. Thus, a Chekhovian play shows the inner lives of his characters. 4.2.4 J.M. Synge, 1871 to 1909. Irish playwright, Synge was born near Dublin. He was educated at Trinity College, Dublin. Later he went to Paris, where he met W.B. Yeats, who suggested that he go to Aran Islands to write of Irish peasant life. He wrote The Aran Islands, that documents his life among these rural people. His first play was In the Shadow of the Glen, followed by famous elegiac one-act tragedy Riders to the Sea, and his best-known controversial play The Playboy of the Western World. His plays were produced by the Irish National Theatre Society and were presented by the Abbey Players. His later works include The Tinker's Wedding and an unfinished tragedy Deirdre of the Sorrows. He uses rhythmic, lyrical prose to achieve effects of great power and resonance. He instilled poetry into the modern drama, and romanticism was invigorated with reality. Synge was changed with satirizing Ireland, and thus the Irish populace misunderstood him. He was an Irish nationalist and hoped that Ireland would get freedom through peaceful negotiations rather than armed rebellion. His most popular play is the Playboy of He Western World. In this play, Synge weaves a web of ironies through romantic illusion and reality. It's a perfect blend of a comedy and seriousness. His characters enjoy a sense of individuality. Christie is a bragging tale-teller. Pegeen is a curious figure as she is mix of sharp tongue and romantic illusions. The widow Quinn is looking for a second husband, and old Mohan possesses incredible strength. In the preface to this play, Synge writes, "On the stage one must have reality, and one must have joy, and that is why the intellectual modern drama has failed, and people have grown sick of the false joy of the musical comedy that has been given them in place of the rich joy found only in what is superb and wild in reality. In a good play, every speech should be fully flavored." 4.2.5 George Bernard Shaw, 1856 to 1950. Shaw was born in Dublin but moved to London. He was a supporter of women's rights and an advocate of equality of income, abolition of private property, and a radical change in the voting system. He campaigned for a theatre of ideas. Shaw wrote over 50 plays including Mole and Superman, Major Barbara, Pygmalion, Saint John, Back 10 Methuselah, The Apple Carl, and The Simpleton of the Unexpected Isles. These plays were published in collections Plays Pleasant and Unpleasant and 3 Plays for Puritans. The plays had lengthy prefaces in which Shaw clearly expresses his views as a non-romantic and a champion of the thinking man. The dramatic conflict in his plays is the conflict of thought and belief. Discussion is the basis of the plays. He believed that war, disease, and the present brevity of lifespan frustrate the life force, and that functional adaptation, a current of creative evolution activated by the power of human will, was essential to any real progress, and indeed to the survival of the species. Drabble, 924. His The Quintessence of Elbasianism reveals his debt to Ibsen as a playwright. He died at the age of 94. Mole and Superman, a comedy and a philosophy, is a paradoxical version of the Don Juan story. The hero is John Tanner, who is pursued by Anne Whitefield, who is interested in him as a potential husband than in his political theories. The most important act is Act 1, which consists of a dream sequence set in hell in which Tanner, captured by Brigand Mendoza, becomes his ancestor Don Juan, and Anne becomes Enna. The play ends with the announcement of Anne and Tanner's marriage and Tanner's submission to the life force. Arms and the Allen is play that resorted to humor in stripping war of its glamour. The play critiques the romance of arms and the romance of love. The play ridicules pretentious rationalisms. Major Barbara portrays the conflict between spiritual and worldly power embodied in Barbara, a major in the Salvation Army, and her villainous father Andrew Undershaft, a millionaire armament manufacturer. Barbara suffers a crisis of faith as she glimpses the possibility that all salvation and philanthropy are tainted at the source. By the end, she recovers her spirits and embraces the possibility of hope for future. Pygmalion was made into a film titled My Fair Lady in 1957. The flower seller Eliza Doolittle gets transformed into a duchess by the phonetician Professor Henry Higgins, who undertakes this task in order to win a bet and to prove his own point about English speech and the class system. He teaches her to speak standard English and introduces her to social life, thus winning the bet. The play ends with a truce between them. Shaw was not a man but a phenomenon. If some of his plays communicate personal feeling of great intensity, others embody powerful feelings which are not emotional, the parody is not confined to conventional form. 4.2.6 W.B. Yeats, 1865 to 1939. Yeats was born in Dublin, studied at the School of Art in Dublin and at 21 abandoned art as a profession in favour of literature. He helped in the founding of an Irish literary society in London as well as Dublin. Better known as a poet, Yeats applied himself to the creation of an Irish national theatre. He died in France. His well-known plays are The Countess Kathleen, fairy drama The Land of Heart's Desire, The Shadowing Waters, On Bayless Strand and The Death of Cuchulainn. 4.2.7 Luigi Pirandello, 1867 to 1936. Pirandello, the Italian dramatist, short story writer and novelist, challenged the conventions of naturalism. Best known of his published plays are Naked Masks, Right You Are, If You Think You Are, and Six Characters in Search of an Author. His major contribution is to re-evaluation of the nature of man and his reassessment of conceptions of reality. According to the well-known critic Raymond Williams, the worlds of naturalism and expressionism cross and engender what is really a new form, one which has continued to be influential. Delusion, loss of identity, the reduction of personality to a role and of society to a collective impersonation. These are the elements of a new kind of theatre, a use of the theatre to expose itself, and then in the double exposure to question any discoverable reality. What began as a twist of romantic drama become a decisive twist of a whole dramatic tradition. Williams, Raymond, 184. 4.2.8 Garcia Lorca, 1898 to 1936. Lorca, Spanish poet and dramatist, was killed in the early days of Spanish Civil War. He had been experimenting in drama since his earliest years. He drew on the life of Spanish country people, on the national literature and on the gypsy songs and dance. His popular plays are Blood Wedding, Yerma and The House of Bernardo Alba. Blood Wedding is about jealousy and revenge, in which the unique notes are the creation of a dramatic poetry of intense desire. Lorca moves from realistic conversation through speeches, which are lyrics, elegies, songs or chorus. The play begins with the mother talking to her only son about work and marriage. It ends with the lament of the mother and the bride at the death of the son, the bridegroom, and the other man with whom the bride went away. Interestingly, the characters are called the bride, bridegroom, mother, wife, father and Leonardo, for it is him who breaks the pattern. It's a poetics drama in which the imagery and action are fused. In The House of Bernardo Alba, the house of Bernardo Alba is occupied only by women, all unmarried, and the mother who works against their marriage. The father has died, the largest portion of money has come to the eldest girl. The bitter jealousy breaks the whole situation open. Adela takes her life. 4.3 Mid-Century Theatre. 4.3.1 Bertolt Brecht, 1898 to 1956. Brecht, German dramatist and poet, settled in East Berlin in 1949. Brecht's early plays Ball, Drums in the Night and Man is Man anticipate later development of his alienation effect. The Three-Penny Opera. The Caucasian Chalk Circle, Mother, Courage and He Who Said Yes, He Who Said No made him an outstanding dramatist. In modern Europe, what Brecht created was a dramatic form in which men were shown in the process of producing themselves and their situation. This is a dialectical form drawing directly on Marxist theory. His methods of writing, producing and acting embodied a critical detachment He used boards across the stage to indicate the time and place of the actor and situation. He presented characters that were alienated from themselves and from one another. His figures often moved in vacuum where the most unexpected must be expected. Brecht's epic theatre is a legitimate offspring of the Expressionist revolution of the 20s and of European theatrical history. Politzer writes, his aesthetic theory is a mechanism both of offense and defense. It may well be recognized for what it is: the intellectual mimicry behind which a creative mind hid from outward persecution and inward doubts. In the Caucasian Chalk, the prologue is set in Soviet Russia. Russian peasants who return to a village destroyed by the Germans are engaged in a discussion bordering on a quarrel. One group claims the valley as a homestead, the other plans to irrigate it and to use it for vineyards and orchards. The latter group wins. To celebrate the reconciliation, the play of Chalk Circle is performed. The play describes Grisha's rescue of the governor's deserted child, her flight before the revolution, her marriage to a peasant who is supposedly dying, and finally the return of the governor's wife and her claim for the child. Azdak tries the case of the child and awards the child to Grisha, the foster mother who had saved him by sacrificing her personal happiness. Her sacrifice is recognized as superior. In Mother Courage and Her Children, Mother Courage is a canteen woman serving with the Swedish army during the 30 Years' War, 1618-48. Despite an early warning that war can never be all take and no give, she intends to make a living of the war while keeping her children out of it. Her brave son Elif is tempted into the infantry, kills a peasant and is executed. Her honest son Swiss Cheese defends the regimental cash box. He is captured and executed by the enemy. Warm-hearted daughter Catherine dies, warning the sleeping town of Halle that the enemy is at the gates. Mother Courage's business prospers and then declines. Bored and alone, she drags her battered wagon. Speaking on the performance of the play, Brecht said that the show primarily highlighted that war is a continuation of business by other means, and makes human virtues fatal. No sacrifice is too great for the struggle against war. 4.3. To Samuel Beckett, 1906-89. Beckett, who became known as a playwright of theatre of the absurd, was born in Dublin. He became popular with plays like Finnegan's Wake, Malone Dies Waiting for Godot, Endgame, Happy Days and Come and Go. He used stage and dramatic narrative to revolutionize drama. Wailing for Godot is essentially about uncertain waiting. Pozzo and Lucky are in a formal world and in an unorthodox social relationship, dominating and being dominated. They are tied to each other. Vladimir and Estragon have a different relationship, informal and outside society, at once loving, doubtful and resentful, wanting to break away and yet anxiously returning to each other. There is a major contrast in tone as well. Each pair is on the road. It is Vladimir who is waiting for Godot, Estragon is waiting for death. Beckett controls with extraordinary skill his actions, speech, imagery, uncertainty, and revelation. 4.4 American dramatists. 4.4.1 Eugene Zero, Neill, 1888-1953. Neill was the son of a well-known romantic actor in America and had a varied career as a scammon, gold prospector, journalist and actor before associating himself with the experimental theatre group. His first big success was the fun-length naturalistic drama Beyond the Horizon, followed by expressionistic tragedy The Emperor Jones. His other important plays were The Hairy Ape, Desire Under the Elms, Wilderness, Days Without End, The Iceman Comet and Long Day's Journey into Night. The plays give a powerful presentation of the struggle between self-destruction, self-deception, and redemption. O'Neill caught the reality of common people living on sea or land. His desire under the elms is about the timelessness of the inner struggle between a son and a father. Eben and old Ephraim. Ephraim was a hard husband to his gentle first wife whom he worked, zero death, and whose child Eben he hated for resembling her. The Hairy Ape tells the story of the super stoker Yank who discovers his shortcomings from a chance meeting with one of the passengers, cultured and wealthy Mildred. It is a symbolic play about a man who has lost his old harmony with nature and has not acquired a new spiritual way. The Iceman Comet is a lengthy naturalistic tragedy set in Harry Hope's Bowery Saloon, where a collection of down-and-out alcoholics nourish their pipe dreams with the aid of an extrovert, cheerful salesman Hickey. Long Day's Journey into Night has been praised as his finest play. The play is the cultural expression of American, Irish Catholicism. 4.4.2 Tennessee Williams, 1911–83. Tennessee Williams was born in Mississippi and brought up in St. Louis. His important plays are American Blues, Battle of Angels, The Glass Menagerie, A Streetcar Named Desire, The Rose Tattoo, Suddenly Last Summer, and Cat 011, A Hot Till Roof. The semi-autobiographical play The Glass Menagerie is a poignant and painful family drama set in St. Louis, in which a frigid and frustrated mother dreams of her glamorous past. The conflict is with the grimness of her reduced circumstances as she persuades her rebellious son Tom to provide a gentleman collar for her crippled daughter, Sora. A Streetcar Named Desire is a study of sexual frustration, violence, and aberration, set in New Orleans, in which Blanche Dubois' fantasies of refinement and grandeur are brutally destroyed by her brother-in-law Stanley, whose animal nature fascinates and repels her. 4.4.3 Arthur Miller, 1915–2005. Arthur Miller became famous with the play All My Sons, an Ibsenesque drama about a manufacturer of defective aeroplane parts, and established himself as a leading dramatist with Death of a Salesman, in which a traveling salesman, Willie Loman, is brought to disaster by accepting the falser values of contemporary society. This was followed by The Crucible, in which the Salem witchcraft trials of 692 are used as a parable for McCarthyism in America in the 1950s. A View from the Bridge is a tragedy of family honor and revenge. The Misfits is a screenplay for his wife Marilyn Monroe. After the Fall presents the semi-autobiographical figure of Quentin, and the Price contrasts the lives and opinions of two estranged brothers. Miller himself wrote, "It is the everlastingly sought balance between order and the need of our soul for freedom, the relatedness between our vaguest longings, our inner questions, and private lives, and the life of the generality of men, which is our society and our world." Miller's plays deal with questions of social status, honor, and freedom from constraints. 4.5 Recent drama. The recent European drama is unusually serious, vital, and responsive. The emergence of working-class drama presented disorganized life. This movement with common aims and methods created the new drama. The prominent new dramatists are Arden Wesker, Pinter, Osborne, Edward Bond, and Carrie Churchill. 4.5.1 John Arden, 1930–2012. Arden was educated at Cambridge and Edinburgh University, where he studied architecture. His popular plays are The Waters of Babylon, a grotesque satirical sprawling play about a corrupt municipal lottery organized by a slum landlord, Live Like Pigs, dealing with social conflict and violence, Sergeant Musgrave S. Downs, and The Happy Heaven. In the waters of Babylon, the central character is a Polish emigre who leads a double life. Working in an architect's office by day, while out of office he runs a lodging house. The characters are likable, amiable and good-natured. His plays are fragments selected, isolated and shaped into a whole. It was with Sergeant Musgrave's Dance that Arden made a break with realism. It is a complex play with confusing characters who appear as concepts. About this play, Gilman said, "It is not a political play except in the sense that Arden writes to test certain modes of political action. It is not real, it is an artifact of the dramatic imagination. And it leaves the problem of violence to those agencies, outside art, whose province it is." Gilman in Modern Drama, 114. Arden is unclassifiable and cannot be put into a category. His drama is between didacticism and impressionism. Arden is one of the few complete originals. 4.5.2 Arnold Wesker, 1932 to 2016. Wesker was educated in Hackney. He worked at various jobs before making a name as a playwright. He is known for his kitchen sink drama, and his popular plays are The Kitchen, Chicken Soup with Barley, Chips with Everything, The Four Seasons, Their Very Own and Golden City. Wesker was recognized as a social dramatist whose plays need a large cast. In Chips with Everything, Wesker studies a class of attitudes in the RAF during National Service 011, the parade ground. Audiences are gripped by the savage precision of military training and the rebellious dancing and singing at a canteen party. The plays is an attack all the British ruling class. The individual and group reaction both are portrayed. The Four Seasons has only two characters and tells the story of a love affair that was private, intimate and finally inconclusive. Wesker uses theatre to explore and demonstrate significant themes in more comprehensive and subtle ways. His most notable qualities are emotional maturity and his command of action in depth. 4.5.3 Harold Pinter, 1930 to 2008. Pinter is the most consistent of new British dramatists as his settings remain simple. They come from the world he lives in and the plot progresses by a revelation of inner tensions. His interests belong to the everyday ritual, from a birthday party to a homecoming, from taking possession to taking care of a room, from breakfast or lunch to fulfilling routines are subjects of dramatic focus. Pinter was born in East London to a tailor Jewish and educated at Hackney. His first play The Room was followed by The Birthday Party and then came The Homecoming, No Man's Land, Betrayal, Party Time and Ashes, to list a few. Drabble writes, Pinter's gift for portraying by means of dialogue which realistically produces the nuances of colloquial speech, the difficulties of communication and the many layers of meaning in language, pause and silence, have created a style labeled by the popular imagination as Pinteresque, and his themes, nameless madness, erotic fantasy, obsession and jealousy, family hatreds, and mental disturbance, are equally recognizable. Drabble, 793. He is the inventor of Comedy of Manners. Pinter wrote for radio and television also. The Room and The Birthday Party present 7 or 8 people, each carefully introduced. The Room dramatizes the fact that every room has a door and the very existence of a door suggests the unknown. In The Birthday Party, Stanley the hero has found cozy home in a seaside boarding house. The heralds of the outside world appear to drive Stanley from the warmth of his security for reasons not explained. The play merely conveys the image nameless madness. Pinter's plays do away with lengthy exposition. Further, they leave the action unexplained and the characters unmotivated. Further, They reach no solution and force the audience to find their own interpretations. The plays provide observations of ordinary human behavior. 4.5.4 John Osborne, 1929 to 1994. Osborne was born in London to a commercial artist. He made his name with look back in anger, and for his outbursts of rage against contemporary society, and this anger made him known as the angry young mole. His other known plays are Epitaph for George Dillon, Luther, Inadmissible Evidence, and A Patriot for Me. His first plays were structurally conventional, but mirrored Osborne's world and its idealistic pretensions. In Luther, the hero, driven by his moral, sexual, and physical tensions, brings terror and pain to himself and others. The play proves the ability of Osborne to grasp dramatic ideas and the language to convey them on a poetical level. Inadmissible Evidence is about the frankly apologetic presentation of Maitland, who is struggling with the same adversary all the time. Osborne is no longer angry and defiant and asks for compassion and understanding. 4.5.5 Edward Bond, 1934. Bond was born in North London to an East Anglian labourer. His popular plays are The Pope's Wedding, Saved, Early Morning, The Sea, The Fool Summer, and The War Place. Bond's theatre is an outspoken indictment of capitalist society, his belief that violence occurs in situations of injustice and that it therefore flourishes as a cheap consumer commodity under capitalism, continues to arouse extreme responses from critics and audiences. Drabble 118. 4.5.6 Carol Churchill, 1938. Churchill was educated at Montreal and Oxford. Most of her plays are radical and feminist in tone. Her known plays are Owners is a satire on property and capitalism. Cloud 9 explores contemporary sexual identity, Light Shining in Buckinghamshire exhibits sexual repression in Victorian Africa. 4.6 Some other dramatists. Other dramatists who are equally important and made landmark presentations and wrote plays in the contemporary period of turmoil, experiment, innovation, and adjustment need to be studied at a glance, if not in detail. These are the French and German dramatists. 4.6.1 Jean-Paul Sartre, 1905–80. Sartre, the French philosopher, novelist, playwright, literary critic, and political activist, was the principal exponent of existentialism in France and exercised a considerable influence on French intellectual life. His dramas The Flies, In Camera, No Exit, Dirty Hands, and Loser Wins are well known. Sartre's plays are marked by clarity of attitude. He tried to mediate between man's despairing sense of a void in the world and his need to recover some justification for remaining alive and respecting himself. He offered a new idea of courage and integrity. 4.6.2 Jean Giraudoux, 1882–1944. Giraudoux became popular because of his plays Amphitryon 38, Judith, Tiger at the Gates, and Duel of Angels. His gifts of irony and paradox and modernized versions of biblical or classical legend made him stand apart from the rest. He used simple individual conflicts as metaphors, simplified the terms of conflict, and then played freely with the element of surprise in unexpected reversals. Almost all works of this French dramatist are organized around analogous debates: war and peace, love of a young man and the love of an old man, etc. His is the theatre of language, as the magic of words and power of combination of words was fundamental to his universe. 4.6.3 Jean Anouilh, 1910–87. Anouilh was the most popular French dramatist with nearly 50 dramatic works. The most popular of these are Thieves' Carnival, Ring Round, Q Moon, The Lurk, and The Waltz of the Toreadors. UNOU's works do not reflect reality as everyday experience. They do not attempt an explanation of the human individual in terms of psychological realism. Thus, his drama was essentially asocial. He implies no faith and little interest in social relations as such. His bitter satirical portraits of aristocracy are moral rather than social. 4.6.4 Gerhard Hauptmann, 1862–1946. The first German naturalistic play to be produced was Before Sunrise by Hauptmann in 1889. His other important plays were The Weavers, Signalman Thief and Shrovetide. He combined naturalist observations with social democratic sympathies, and this made The Weavers epoch-making. He cemented a new bond between realistic theatre and the masses. Joyce called The Weavers a masterpiece, a little immortal thing. For him, a pessimistic conclusion was peculiarly relevant. He created timeless works. 4.6.5 Friedrich Dürrenmatt, 1921–90. Swiss dramatist Dürrenmatt was a writer of grotesque black comedy, and he thought that after the Second World War tragedy was a form no longer applicable to our modern upside-down world. His best plays are The Visit and The Physicists. Both deal with power and responsibility, the first with reference to money, the second on the theme of criminality of atomic physics. Certain tendencies typical to his drama are the grotesque setting with emphasis on bizarre and macabre. 4.7 Summary. The 20th century drama was a naturalistic, realistic, existential, epic, absurd and impressionistic drama. It was experimental, and each dramatist made a mark with his kind of observations, amendments and innovations. It varied far and wide between countries and techniques. It was no more a bastion of the aristocrats or specialists. Amateurs and middle class, or even low class drama emerged in this century. We are indebted to the 20th century for the growth and development of drama. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.